Speaking of which, it's 7 o'clock. Let's get this game started. Let's see. Yes. Chair Peck is not with us tonight, so Aaron Rodriguez, Vice Chair, will be chairing this meeting tonight. Let's move into call to order and roll call.
So we have Commissioner Susie Ogleferry.
Here.
Commissioner Marsha Martin.
Here.
Commissioner Sean McCoy.
Present.
Vice Chair Aaron Rodriguez.
Here.
Commissioner Tim Waters.
Here.
Commissioner Shakita Yarbrough.
Here.
Very good. Moving in to agenda revisions and submission of documents. Do we have any?
Yes.
We do have one. Associated with Resolution 2023-38, the closing resolution for Village on Main, there was supposed to be the CDBG IGA attached to that resolution item. Council considered and approved this, and the mayor has signed this on the city side back on September 26th. So that is referenced in the resolution, but the document was not attached in the packet, so I apologize about that. But it is not brand new, since this board has seen it in another capacity.
Very good. Do I see any other revisions from the commissioners? Seeing none, we'll move on to review and approval of the August 15, 2023 minutes.
I move that we approve them as presented.
Second.
All right. Commissioner McCoy has moved approval and has been seconded by Commissioner Waters. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, all those opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes 6-0 with Chair Peck absent. At this time, we'll move on to public invited to be heard. I believe we do have at least one. Yes. You can stand there if you'd like, or
I can just say seated.
you can stay seated if you'd like. And you'll get 3 minutes, and if you'll, that'll do it for us.
I'm Victoria O'Grady, and I live at Spring Creek Apartments under LHA. And I wanted to sort of start the conversation about mental health and some struggles that I'm having with communication and some of the rules, things like that. I've been there since it opened, and for me, it's been really hard. We've had a lot of managers, a lot of rule changing, and I could read my letter, but Molly and Lisa knows what I'm going to say. So should I just read the letter? Should I read this?
Whatever you'd like to say, it's
I've
your
never
time.
done something like this, so I'm all new to this. All right. Okay, I'm here to explain what I've been going through living at Spring Creek and asking for a kinder way for me and other residents to be treated better. My mental health is in steady decline since I qualified to live here because I was affected by the 2013 flood and was homeless. I'm 69. I was a surgical registered nurse and moved out here from Tennessee to try to keep working after I got diagnosed with MS. And my disability is invisible. I know by looking at me, you would never know things I couldn't do. Some days I can't get off the sofa, but then other times I can be out on the grounds, pulling weeds, things like that. So I had to try to keep working, so I moved out to Colorado as a travel nurse and trying to take care of my 85-year-old mom who had dementia. And that's another story all about itself, but I'm a domestic abuse survivor and I struggle with PTSD, which was diagnosed at the time when I moved in. I also have severe chronic pain issues from work injuries and several car wrecks. They weren't my fault. Going through the long process of applying for disability was difficult and humbling. You have to support yourself for over a year. you can't work, and you go through a lot of interviews about my health and explaining every detail of my life. I lost my beautiful home, my car, my friends that didn't understand what I was going through. After my mom passed, I have no family left, and I couldn't have kids, so I just accepted it, that I couldn't have kids. Just the process of going through is a lot of stuff, but I also lost control of what was happening to my life. Living with my mom was very challenging and sad to see her mind decline. Every day was a new strange issue. She passed after a heart attack, and losing my health, losing my home, and then losing my mom, I was just lost. I had no help. Went through everything by myself. It was a rude awakening and lost my dignity and life-changing to say the least. I remember going through my first food bank. I just left crying. I couldn't accept where I was and how I got there. Eventually, you have to face the music and wonder where you would end up without income or family. Then you have to start telling your story to help you get to relive every second, every failure, what people would say to you. People start talking to me like I was stupid, condescending manners, and talk to me like I was a child. So when I was notified that I was accepted at Spring Creek, I was very excited, but knew nothing about Longmont, or I was just moving from Fort Collins. I don't know anything about Longmont. But I'm very grateful and told management, I sent them a letter when I first moved in and sent it to Kirsten, thanking her for such a beautiful building, and I'm not ungrateful. You would never, like I said, you never guess by looking at me the trouble I have. I've chronic pain through injuries at work and for car wrecks that weren't my fault, and MS is the worst because you look okay and you can't do much sometimes. I have insomnia, depression, foggy brain, memory issues, severe exhaustion, and some days you can't even get off the sofa or cook for myself. The first manager was kind and understanding, but there were serious issues at the office of LHA. It was on the news almost every day, and you could feel it from the manager, just chaos and uncertainty, and the mistreatment started. Even had to see a great maintenance man get fired in front of everybody. So the disrespect started very blatantly and was confusing. I didn't understand why things were directed at myself and the other residents, but this is about me. I've been threatened, screamed at, bullied, disrespected time after time. I didn't know who I was. I don't know what I've become. I'm irritable. I'm not friendly. I don't laugh anymore. And it's just been hard. My PTSD was the worst because moving in, I was just diagnosed with it. And so I didn't have a handle on it. And with MS, it depends on where your lesions are in your brain, how it affects you. So it affects my emotions bad. I mean, I cry at the drop of a hat. I get confused. And lost count of how many managers we've had, and with each new managers, we've got new rules and more confusion. But I'm curious why you think you have the right to treat me like I'm a third world country. I definitely don't want to be disabled and lose everything. I work so hard. I don't want MS, and that comes with my other health issues. There was a huge learning curve on how to accept and learn how to pace myself and accept my limits. I made myself do things when I have to, and I've taken care of the grounds for the last 4 years, and I've been there 7. I enjoy it because I miss my yard, but I don't understand why it continues to look so bad and nothing's done about it. Well, because we have to see it every day. Y'all don't ever see it. So, but I love doing that. I know it sounds crazy, but I do like working out in the yard. We live in a very nice neighborhood that accepted that they would have this type of building among their beautiful homes. Last time I counted 40 shrubs are dead or missing. I pulled 4 4 deep weeds, picked up trash, pruned roses, and turned mulch. I can do a couple of hours in the evening in the shade. I can do a couple hours a day. I just like being outside and giving back. One area on the west side is just landscape and fabric, and it's been like that for 4 years, and I don't understand why that can't be fixed.
Ma'am, we're well over time.
Oh, okay.
But thank you so much for your testimony.
Okay.
I know you've been heard. I know staff has heard you, and I know that we as the
Okay.
commission have heard you.
Yeah, that's fine. I really want to get better, and I know I've got my mental health issues, but I want it to get better, and I don't know where I'm going wrong.
I understand. Thank you so much. You've been heard. And I know, like I said, staff has captured this,
Okay.
and hopefully you get some responses
Okay.
to what you've said.
So do I leave now, or
If you want, you can stay. You don't have to leave.
I'll stay a while?
You're welcome to stay.
Something like
Does
this.
anybody else from the public wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, I will close public invited to be heard, and we'll move on to item 5 of the agenda, old and new business. 5A, CDBG agreement amendments. Item 5A1 is resolution 2023-32, accept IGA First Amendment for the Aspen Meadows Neighborhood Playground Replacement Project.
If council has any questions, if the commissioners have any questions, we'd be happy to answer. I think most of the information is provided in the background material.
Any questions from the commissioners?
I'll move acceptance.
Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion to approve Resolution 2023-32 by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner McCoy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, Resolution 2023-32 passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. Resolution 2023-33, accept IGA First Amendment for the Hoover Crossing Parking and Accessibility Project.
Same situation.
Okay.
Pretty explicit.
Any questions? Seeing none, can I have a motion?
I move resolution LHA 2023-33.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner McCoy to approve Resolution 2023-33, seconded by Commissioner Martin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Resolution 2023-33 passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. Resolution 2023-34, accept IGA First Amendment for the LHA Security Cameras Project.
Same as the last one.
Any questions?
We
See,
actually have one.
Okay.
Sorry. For I guess a year or so ago, we got a lot of grumpiness from residents about having cameras in the public area. And I am wondering whether by messaging and things like that, whether that has settled down and people understand that this is a safety measure and not a
Yes.
surveillance measure.
Yes, Harold and Sarah and Arnie have done a really great job at Coffee and Conversations, communicating to the residents the need and why for safety concerns.
I think it's actually moved the opposite direction where they want us to move faster. And it's technical issues technical issues related to federal list on what chips you can use and things like that. And so they actually want us to move faster now.
That's good. All right, well, I'll move acceptance of this one.
Second.
all right, Resolution 2023-34 has been moved by Commissioner Martin and seconded by Commissioner McCoy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of 23-34, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Resolution 2023-34 passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. Moving on to 5B, CDBG CV program. Item 1, Resolution 2023-35, accept CDBG CV First Amendment for LHA Accessibility Project.
So similar, the background is pretty explicit in what we're going to, what we want to do on this one. This is connected to the voluntary compliance agreement that the Housing Authority signed with HUD prior to the full transition. This is just continuing that work for both of these items. What I would add in this case is that when we looked at it from a budgeting perspective, there wasn't enough to deal with all of the properties. Next Tuesday, based not as the Housing Authority, but as the City Council, you all have given us the ability to move ARPA funding as we see necessary. This project is federalized because it has CDBG funds in it, and as we're moving to the end of the ARPA funding cycle, finding a federalized program is becoming pretty important to us. And so I'm going to give a presentation in terms of ARPA dollars and interest dollars in terms of where we would like to shift that to the council to get direction. So if in your capacity as a city council you approve that direction, then we'll actually be able to deal with all of the ADA adjustments that we need to make on the properties and fully close that out as part of the voluntary compliance agreement.
But you're going to do that another night.
Next Tuesday, because it's really a council action. It's a council direction based on the recommendation. I'm going to move in the ARPA dollars. So if the council chooses to do that, then we'll add the final two properties on to the work that we need to do.
So this amendment extends time because it was very difficult to get concrete contractors to bid, and once we got it, the prices were over our estimates, of course. And so this captures the piece that we can still fit under this CB grant budget, and then that would be the backfill.
So I move resolution 2023-35.
Second.
All right, any further questions before we, okay. It has been moved by Commissioner McCoy and seconded by Commissioner Martin that we move resolution 2023-35. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, resolution 2023-35 passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. Moving on to 5B2, resolution 2023-36, approved budget amendment and execution of contract for concrete work for LHA accessibility project.
So this is the same project, but the concrete contract is over $100,000, which exceeds our ability to have the executive director sign. And so that's coming to you for approval. And then the budget amendment is just regarding that front funding it with the general fund, and then it'll get reimbursed with the grant funds. But because of the ARPA money being a pending decision from council, that we just have to front fund it for a period of time. So that's how come that's on there.
Very good. Any questions from the commission?
So just to clarify, so it's not that we have to fund, like with some grants, you have to fund the project first and then get paid back.
Right.
That's not this case, it's just you're waiting for us to, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, no, we have the money. It's just from the allocation, let me back up. If you remember, we allocated money to affordable housing. We allocated money to whole neighborhoods in different areas. As we continue moving through projects, what happens is some don't spend as much as they thought they were going to need. And so we've made a couple of adjustments thus far.
Okay,
The money's sitting literally in an account. We just need the direction to do that.
got it. Okay. Well, I'll move LHA 2023-36.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioner Hidalgo Faring moved resolution 2023-36. Commissioner Martin seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, resolution 2023-36 passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. Moving on to 5C1. This is Village on Main Resyndication Rehabilitation Project. Item 1 is construction scope and price summary discussion only.
Commissioners, the Village on Main project is getting into the final stages in preparation for closing, which is anticipated to happen in early December. It's getting to that point where it's getting very real and very busy. Not that it wasn't already. So I wanted to kind of give you an update on where we are, because the construction pricing has come in. And so I wanted to give you a summary of how that process has gone and what the project is looking like. So we've been working for a year and a half on coming up with our wish lists. Actually, I should say our needs list and our wish lists, and making sure that we plan appropriately throughout this design process to try and maximize and get as much as we can fit into the project budget. So it includes, the project certainly included in our base bids, flooring throughout the building, new cabinets in kitchen appliances and sinks and plumbing, etc., in all of the units, kitchens and bathrooms, including the common area kitchens and baths. Some reorganization to add a new laundry room because there wasn't enough laundry space, and a new public restroom, upgrades to the atrium area and the lobby just to reconfigure and make it flow, and then new roofing, upgrades to the exterior, and those were our key things, and critical systems, water heaters and baseboard and the like. The wish list items that we had were removal of the popcorn ceiling throughout. This is something the residents have all pretty unanimously wanted. And then being able to stain the brick on the outside to make it look like, match historic downtown Longmont and not be 1990 pink, but more of a faux historic building. And solar panels on the roof for photovoltaic. Right now we've got those ones that are tied to the water heating system that's now defunct technologically. And so our pricing came in pretty much right on target, and we're expecting to be able to get all of those wish list items, and then still have contingency for emergencies or items that we need to add, or even items that we would like to add during the construction. So the total cost estimate is $7.3 million. It will be 7.6 by the time you add on our final cost and contingency. And then what that includes, I'm sorry, 7.6 million total. It was right in line with our budget, and so we are all very happy to not have any severe sticker shock, and be able to really accomplish everything that we wanted to do, at least the big items that we wanted to do, and really meet the residents' needs as much as we can as well. So we are entering the process of preparing for closing. Construction is still targeted to start in January. It could be up to 10 months. We're finalizing the schedule right now. We have a contract with the hotel executed. We're getting a move-in contract executed for those move-ins, move-outs. We are presenting to the residents November 17th to go over the detailed relocation plan, and everything is coming together. So that is, I just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes. Quick question. You said that this was accomplished without the expected sticker shock, or at least without sticker shock. Did you get the sense that commodity and supply chain situation is normalizing at this point?
More like we planned for it to be difficult.
I think what's happening is our project estimates, as we're starting them later in the process, we're actually better able to predict it because we're not seeing the out of control inflation that we were in the first 2 years. In terms of supply chain issues, Katie, who's on the call virtually, we had a meeting with the investors where we took them through. We know that there's going to be work that's probably going to come in a little bit later, and it's specifically related to the electrical panels, and I think again it's switchgear related to the photovoltaic system. And we know that the lead time is beyond the 10 months, and so that piece of the project we're going to hold, and hopefully we keep our fingers crossed and we get it early, but we're going to convert. So that right now at Village Place they all have individual meters. We're going to take the individual meters out. We're going to convert to a master meter, which works better when you have the solar system in place, and then get that going. And then as part of that, we are going to talk to, we are going to work with Longmont Power in terms of what they're considering doing with batteries and some other things.
So right now, we have a meter read activity, 72 meter reads every month. And then we get a bill, 72 bills every month, and LHA pays the bills. So that really doesn't, that's a remnant of it being not an LHA property originally. And so LHA currently pays $14,000 a year just in meter read fees, because we have 72, even though we pay them and pay it in one check for 72 bills. So that was really a good operational decision. I do plan to take you through a solar, kind of a solar story on this project and what we're trying to do for Hover, because it turns out to be very interesting and complex and not simple for every affordable housing project. So I do, once we have a little bit more information on the Hover side, I want to kind of present that to you all, just to see how this works at a future date.
Any further questions from the commission? Okay, as that was discussion only, we'll move on to 5C2, Resolution 2023-37, forgiveness of 2006 loans to Village Place Associates, LLLP.
Okay, so I'll take this one as well. So, a little bit of background. Council already considered the city's Affordable Housing Fund loan to the LHA and approved forgiveness of that loan back in last month. What typically happens is the city and other parties grant funds to LHA, and then LHA, for this project, in this case, the 2006 resyndication rehab of Village Place, and then LHA needs to then loan that into the LIHTC financing, because it has to come in into a loan for tax reasons. And so, when the city considered the Affordable Housing Fund loan forgiveness in September, that was from the city to the LHA. The LHA now needs to consider forgiveness of that loan off of Village Place Associates, the LIHTC entity that owns the property. In addition, in this case, there are 3 other ones that did come in as grants, in which never anticipated to be paid back, but we still have to loan them into the project to make sure it matches up in the tax deal. So you have 4 loans being considered tonight. The Affordable Housing Fund loan passed through from LHA down to Village Place Associates is the the more complicated one. The other 3 are pretty simple because the funds were granted to LHA, DOH, the Federal Home Loan Bank, and the CDBG grant from the city. Those all came in as grants. Those entities do not expect a payback, but really we still need to take action about the LHA forgiving those loans from Village Place Associates. So I think it'd be easiest to break this into 2 sections. One is the Affordable Housing Fund loan that was a true loan to the LHA, and there was a payback expectation, which now has been forgiven by the city, but there is some consideration to go through. And then the second kind of chunk is the 3 that came in as grants, and that's really a forgive it or not. But the first one, we have a couple of options to go through. So pause if there's questions first.
So this can all be taken in the same resolution then?
It can. It just has to, we want to amend the resolution based on your decision tonight that we will put into the written resolution for signature tomorrow, just indicating the amount forgiven or not.
Are you asking for an amendment, or is the amendment currently written in the way you'd like it to end up?
So
We're asking for an amendment. There's a blank space for what we want to do with the Affordable Housing Fund
I
loan.
want to see that right at the top.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, second page.
it might bear some explanation
yes.
on that one.
The staff recommendation for the other 3 is to forgive it, since it would hurt the project budget and there's no expectation of payback from the original funders. So that is a simple yes or no, and that is how the resolution is written according to staff recommendation right now. So it might make sense to split those up and maybe cover that one first and then go to the more complex one.
Any commissioners want to weigh in?
I'm just curious, where we have the blank, I don't know, page numbers, it's page 2 of two, not one, I guess, two.
The resolution.
Yeah. So I see now therefore be it resolved, the forgiveness of the remaining balances in the CDBG, DOH, and Federal Home Loan Bank, right, as one, and then to drop a number in. That would be one motion on this amended resolution. And the number that we need to drop in is it the 600,000 or the?
So, it was, the original loan was 600,000 to the LHA. This piece was discussed at the city council side. The LHA has paid 202,000 on that on behalf of Village Place Associates. Village Place actually didn't pay that much to LHA, so the LHA general fund fronted that for a portion of it. So the recommendations that I put in here are full forgiveness, full payback, or two options for a partial forgiveness. This was written Thursday and Friday. Everything with the preparing for closing is moving in such real time that just yesterday we confirmed that the investors are requesting certain insurance policies that we didn't include in the budget originally, and of course insurance is skyrocketing. And so my recommendation was going to be to pay back the LHA a portion because the project could afford it. The project budgeted for $350,000 of loan repayments to whatever was out there, which this is the best fit. And at first, because our budget numbers were coming in great, we really didn't, the project wouldn't have suffered from giving LHA some of that money back and helping the general fund. Now, however, we've got these unknowns of the insurance that are happening within the last 24 hours. And so
They're going to be paid for out of project funds. The Village Place project.
Yes. So the recommendation that staff would make tonight would be to allow up to full forgiveness, assuming the project needs the money to cover operating expenses based on insurance and things in that nature. So it would be, the forgiveness amount would be a range between $512,288.49 and the full amount of $862,288.49. So that what that means is, assuming the project budget can absorb the insurance costs that we just found out about, then they would pay back everything possible outside of that. If that is hitting the project in a negative way and affecting our debt capacity, then it would require more forgiveness or full forgiveness.
Yeah, I think the way I would phrase it is, if council or the commission wanted to, you could authorize forgiveness up to $600,000 to cover the cost associated with the new insurance requirements. And if the funding is not needed, then it goes back to the remaining two of the 200 would go back to the housing authority.
How does that square with the numbers we just heard from
Does that, I mean,
I was gonna say, it's not the 600, it would be that full 800, so forgive up to that full, accrued, principal plus interest number of 800.
yeah, okay.
So requiring either zero payback or a portion payback.
So where's the 588 come from?
That's because,
Is that the number I heard?
no, 512, 288. That's because the project budgeted for $350,000 of loan payoffs. So that's the kind of the
So you take that plus the principal
floor
and interest.
and the ceiling.
So does the project have a contingency amount in its budget, or is this option of paying back a range the only contingency in the project?
There is construction contingency, but this is operating expenses that would be long-term. And that kind of is, that is set in the model. There's of course inflationary increases anticipated over time, but really that contingency is more for construction.
Molly, the number was 512.
512, 288.49 as the
Yeah,
floor.
that's the 350 minus the whereas. That you see for 862, 288.49. On the first
To speak
page.
to more, sorry, to speak to more of your question around contingency, like Molly said, there's additional contingency, but I think this allows us to make sure that our projected operating budget is on par and can support this deal for the next, can support the debt for the next, 20 years. So I think this gives us a little bit of flexibility to make sure that the amount of debt that we're taking on is appropriate for the insurance levels that we're going to need, which are, like we said, are kind of working through the nuances. So if the deal can afford to pay back, obviously, LHA is the managing general partner in this deal, so it's kind of all of LHA's money regardless. So it's just kind of how we move it around. But I think the deal having that flexibility to make sure that the debt we take on can be supported over time is kind of where that staff recommendation is coming from.
So the motion would be for resolution 2037, 2337?
To amend, yeah, 2023-27.
Would be on the version that we have the blank, right, to move approval of this resolution with a range of forgiveness from $512,208.49 to $862,288.49.
The second number, just to confirm, 862,288.49. Yes, correct.
I'm glad you did that. Second.
That's I'll move resolution 2337 with those numbers. The range of $512,288.49 to $862,288.49.
Still second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, Resolution 2023-37 has been moved for approval by Commissioner Waters with the amendment that the forgiveness of $512,288.49 to a range of $862,288.49 be added to page 2 of the resolution. Any discussion?
I'm looking at the this backside where it does have our options to consider. I knew I saw it somewhere, I couldn't remember. So that does capture what, would it capture 2 or 3?
It's a combination of 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
A range between 1 and 2.
Okay. Okay. And that would be most advantageous for the project. Okay.
Could you please bring a more complicated resolution? When I'm off this group, right? Bring it when I'm gone.
The speed at which these deals go, and granted that we see this board once a month, we're just forced to be a little nimble sometimes.
Yeah, and again, the issue is they placed additional insurance requirements and we don't have the cost. This gives us the flexibility. If we don't need the flexibility, then the money then can shift into the general.
What was
Okay,
that opt-in dolphins?
And so this was still then, so was this written prior to your update? Okay, so that's what I felt like there was a little bit of a disconnect. And then that does allow us that flexibility.
Yes.
Okay, then I'm good.
Yeah,
So
that
best
was-
case scenario, the deal can pay LHA general fund some amount and still be whole on the deal and cover all the costs.
Okay.
Worst case scenario, we don't pay LHA general fund back anything, but the deal is still solid.
What was that top number again? 800 and what?
862.
$208.49.
49, yep.
I think it was Monday afternoon when you told me, it's changing. And literally, it was like kind of.
Any further questions or discussion? No? Okay. Resolution 2023-37 has been moved by Commissioner Waters and seconded by Commissioner Martin and has been amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Resolution 2023-37 passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. Moving on to item 5C3, Resolution 2023-38, Village on Main closing resolution.
So this is our final closing resolution. It provides authorization for the LHA to enter into all the transactions necessary to close on the financing and the tax credits for the project. That includes the sale of the property to the new entity, setting up the partnership structure, all the financing tax credit, loaning of gap funding received into the partnership, acceptance of the CDBG funds, and relevant operation agreements.
Very good. Any questions? Seeing no questions from the commissioner, I'll entertain a motion.
I move resolution 2023-38.
Second.
All right, resolution 2023-38 has been moved by Commissioner McCoy, seconded by Commissioner Waters. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Resolution 2023-38 passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. Moving on to item 5C4, Resolution 2023-39 bond resolution.
So the LHA was awarded private activity bonds from the city in 2022 and 2023. And so this just authorizes the issuance and sale of those bonds to finance the project.
Very good. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a resolution. Or I mean a motion.
I move resolution 2023-39.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Martin has moved resolution 2023-39. It's been seconded by Commissioner Yarbrough. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, resolution 2023-39 passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. Moving on to 5D1, 2024 LHA budget presentation.
I'm going to add one comment on before Kimberly gets started. I just want to note that this closing resolution, especially being not at the last minute on this project, is a very big milestone. We've been working on this project already for 2 years, I think 2 years. Katie has been amazing in getting this forward for us, and we couldn't have done it without her. And she will miss closing because she'll be having a baby here in the next couple weeks. So just thanks, Katie, for all your help. I'll say that.
Congratulations as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
With that, Katie, are you staying on for the budget? Would you like me to share it?
You do not need to.
Are you logging out?
I will sign off that.
All right. Bye.
I remember being really, really tired at that point.
She's killing it right now.
She's a machine right now.
She's a
She
machine.
wants everything to be very clean.
She's keeping us all organized, getting us ready. Commissioners, I'm just going to start this off really quick. Normally, in the budgets, you were used to probably the last few years me presenting the budgets. Actually, today Kendra is going to be presenting the majority of the budget. I'll jump in for some ancillary comments here and there. Kendra's done a really good job of helping us figure out most of the stuff and leaving just a handful of decisions. So this is kind of part of where we're trying to shift as an organization, creating some, not redundancy, but some redundancy, and as we look at succession planning and some different components of Kendra.
So we're going to talk about what our challenges are. And this is not just for 2024, but it's for every budget as we go into every budget year. So we do have revenue uncertainty. There is HCB tenant vouchers that we budget conservatively for. We budget based on the tax credit rent. We don't budget for their fair market value because they're portable. If that tenant leaves, we're not going to receive that revenue. So with that said, we do have some properties that don't have project-based vouchers. They just have tenant-based, and we really actually need those tenant-based dollars to not come down to the bottom barrel of zero at the end of the year with all the expenditures and staff costs that we have. The other thing we struggle with is the developer fees. So as we start taking on these projects and LHA gets developer fees, we have to work the operating expenses and revenue in a way where we're actually paying those developer fees every year so that LHA is getting money for the administrative staff. So that's something that is also a struggle. Like, are we gonna come down and be able to pay any developer fees at the end of the year? We have inflationary costs across the board. I mean, I know the city's seeing it, we're seeing it. Staff costs, making sure that we're up to market standards. All of our service contracts are going up. That includes landscaping and snow removal and that type of stuff.
Well, not snow removal.
Well, I'll get there. We did see it this year, not for 2024. Utility increases. So I get with the city and I say, what are our utility increases? But there are some utility increases that we don't know during the budget cycle, so we have to estimate. We didn't estimate very good for gas. And so we're playing catch up not only this year, but now we're trying to estimate what could the prices be in 2024. What's it gonna go up?
The gas piece is really important, so we had some comments regarding what some of the exterior areas in Spring Creek. We actually budgeted for things like rock and other things to make improvements to those areas. But because of what we saw in increases in natural gas, we actually had to hold certain areas of the budget to make sure that we had enough money to pay the must-pay bills versus what we wanted to. In terms of the rock at Spring Creek, as part of the budget conversations last week or Friday, it's Friday, based on where we sat, we feel like we actually have enough to cover those issues. So we did tell Lisa that, okay, go ahead and order the rock so we can redo the gardens at Spring Creek. It wasn't as fast as the tenants wanted it, nor as fast as we wanted it, but we had to manage the property budget based on the increase in gas costs.
The next struggle is providing resources, current resources or actually future resources that meet the rising demand. So one of the things is the vehicle mobility. So the city gave us money to, this year and in 2024 to do this pick up and do shopping voyages for the tenants. But come next year, it's a $20,000 cost. And I don't know that LHA is going to be able to work it into their budget. So we worked a little. We worked about $5,000 because we have $15,000 being carried over from the city's generous donation. But come 2025, I don't know if we'll be able to afford that service.
We did that out of the contingency fund, the council contingency fund. That would be an option for council.
It would be another option for council to augment it with contingency funds. I think where we want to get is, ideally would have enough flexibility in the budget to cover it, but if we don't, let's say we can only cover another 5 and we have 10 now coming in for 25, we may need council to cover 10 for 25, knowing that we'll step again for the 26 budget. But that'll be something that we'll be talking to the council and the commissioners about as we continue to move through budgets.
And then employment. When we first came in, when the city first came in, a lot of these positions were under market, way under market. So to get them up to market, which I think they are now, we got to keep that mobility going and to be able to retain, the staff. And we've retained pretty good. In the beginning, it was like, it was a little crazy, but we have retained a lot of our staff, which is great. The other part is benefits. So with the city, we have the city's benefits, but with us, we get charged exactly what the employees select. So if they select single coverage, it's maybe a $7,000 cost. If they select family, it's $20,000. So I have to kind of gamble, like, this person currently has single coverage, but are they going to change come November? So it's kind of a struggle to understand what they might do, and they may not even know until it's open enrollment for them or their spouse to understand if they need to change benefit packages. But for us, like with the city, they do 16% and it's pooled. And you may have one department that has all single coverage and you have another department that has family, so they can do a 16%. But ours can be anywhere from $7,000 mark to $20,000 for family or single coverage, and that's just healthcare alone. So then you have, so the benefits can be a real struggle to know And if we don't have a position filled, we automatically say, somebody's coming in with a family. So we budget at the high amount, and so we could have cost savings if that's not the case. But and if it's on one of our HUD properties, then we have a real problem, because they've only approved a certain amount and we won't get any more. So that's kind of just of our budget challenges every year. So we'll first go over our federally assisted properties. That's the Hearthstone, the Lodge, and the Suites. Those are fully federally assisted. For the Hearthstone and the Lodge, we have submitted the budgets to HUD. They have not been approved yet. They kind of expect anywhere from 150 days to receive approval. So right now it's $895 for the Lodge, and the reason we have a higher increase there is because of the fire that was there. We still have a greater increase in insurance for that property. And then the Hearthstone, it was 6.86. To kind of get a gauge, last year was about 7.5 for these properties, and HUD come back and said, you can't have this, and I had to push back, because most of those costs that they were taking out are gonna be costs that we're gonna incur, like utilities and stuff that they took out. So we can negotiate, but a lot of the times they say you can only get a 4% on those properties. So, but we're still waiting to hear. But currently, that's where these budgets stand. For the suites.
Kendra, if HUD does not approve our budget proposals or budgets, with those increases, 8.95% and 6.8%, which would be covered by HUD, right? That's not a pass-through cost of.
Yeah, it's only a pass-through if their income goes up, correct.
If it gets approved at 4%, how does the difference, how are we gonna cover the difference?
So usually what they do is they come back with a letter and they say, we're denying this part, we're denying this part, we're denying this part. And then we come together and we say, okay, do we really need this year? Can we do this year? There are some things that we actually have planned for in the LHA budget, specifically for the Hearthstone and the Lodge. And one of them is the via mobility, because they don't allow any type of tenant service amounts in the budget. So the LHA is already funding that, and so we would have to come back and say.
So you're gonna trim other parts of the LHA budget in order to cover the gap between what HUD approves and what the actual insurance costs?
Yeah, if there are costs that we can even trim on their budgets. You know, maybe
Yeah, it's all of the above.
Yeah.
We'll look at their budget, we'll have to look at the LHA budget potentially, or we'd have to look at fund balance to figure out exactly what we need. Now, to that point, you know, we have talked to the commission about, this is a 202 project which creates this issue. We have talked about trying to get out of the 202 program. Based on, staff has actually gone through the transition conversations with HUD. You have to time it, and there's some very specific dates that I can't remember. You have to time it in conjunction with your budget submittal and what you're sending into them. And so in this case, when we started the HUD programs, it didn't make sense to do it this year because we would have been too compressed. So we are starting that for 2025 to try to get out of the 202 program into, what is it? It's a voucher.
It's a voucher
It's a
program.
voucher
It's the grant program.
But again, these increases to the point, the increases here are absorbed by HUD, not the tenant. The only increase the tenant gets is if their income increases.
And the same follows suit for the suites. We were pretty far behind in requesting increases from both LHA and DOH to get ourselves up to the fair market standard. We went to DOH in February of this year and did get approval to move to these amounts. We try to keep it consistent on the LHA side. You'll see that these amounts don't concur with what you'll see in the 2024 fair market, but we keep it consistent and we're gradually getting there. We just had a conversation today that maybe we need to hold off asking DOH for a little while and until the 2024 comes out so that we can get closer up to that range.
So if they don't match up, then consistent means they're proportionate, or I just didn't quite know how to take that.
Yeah, so the fair market rent So for example, an efficiency apartment is gonna go up to 1,467. But the fair market rent, because we haven't got a from the LHA yet, and we have the 2024 market rents, it could be higher. But then you just cause conflict at the suites. Somebody may say, my rent's this, why is your rent that? You know, so that's why we try to keep it consistent as well. And go up to the amount that DOH has also approved.
And so why doesn't everybody's rent go up based on fair market rent? Because of leases not?
Because these are all PDVs. These are all project-based vouchers. And project-based vouchers are a contract that we have a contract with LHA and a contract with DOH, and you have to get approval to not only increase your voucher size, if you need to increase your voucher size, but also to get approval for the actual amount that they can sustain. So for example, we have to review our budget and say, can we go up to this cost? And what is this cost on our voucher program gonna affect? Because we got money this last year and we were able to actually look like we vouchered up because we increased the suites. Does that kind of make sense? Because it's all based on our voucher program as well.
On the city side, on the LHA side, it's harder to move to that fair market rent because that takes revenue out of the voucher program, which then ultimately reduces the vouchers that you can put out on the number of vouchers you can. So what they're doing is they're actually aligning to the DOLA number, knowing that we're not at fair market value, and we need to probably back off of DOLA for a little bit so we can catch the housing authority up to be in alignment with that. Did I say that right? I think I did.
Yeah. A lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts. So today we would be asking LHA's approval to move to the same subsidy amounts as DOH approved for our contract date with an effective date of December 1st. And again, these don't affect the tenants unless they're in increases. Escape. There we go.
Just use the arrow to.
Oh, the arrow. Okay. See, I don't do presentations very often. So all the other properties, we are projecting for a 5% rental increase. That would include all of our Life Tech properties. Once again, if they're already at the tax credit rent today, and tax credit usually goes up in April, if that doesn't go up 5%, then the tenant's rent is not gonna go up 5%, because we can only go up to that tax credit rent limit. So you could have some people that are way below that, and they will receive the 5%, but if they're closer to that tax credit rent, it could be from 0 to 5, depending on what tax credit increases.
And the social security increase is gonna be 3.2.
Correct.
So some could get hurt.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this. I think the challenge, going back to the first slide and understanding what our challenges are, the operating expenses are just driving so fast that we spent some time going, what can we do, what can't we do, backing off in certain areas so that we could manage the must-pays with the want-tos as we're looking to the future.
So these are the 2024 fair market rent standards. Because we are seeing such an increase, they are increasing anywhere from 11% to 14% based on our 2023. And in 2023, we went up to a 105% of fair market. We are asking that this year for 2024 is just 100%. We're not asking to go above and beyond that because of such of the increase that we got and how it's going to affect our voucher program.
Does that mean that you're going to have to scrimp on operating costs?
We're not gonna have to scrimp on operating costs, but what we're gonna have to do is watch our 2-year tool program and make sure that as people get certified, that we're staying within the voucher limits that we can. I know in a previous, I think it was in August, that board meeting, I showed that our vouchers were going to go from, they're like 430 right now, but by the end of next year, we're probably gonna be down at 410, just based on the 105% fair market that we went up to, and the new increases that we're incurring there. And it's all dependent on if HUD's gonna give us more money. I assume they budget based on how they're increasing this, because this is gonna affect everybody. But if everybody's not vouchering up, then maybe there's no money to give, and that's their way to help people get vouchered up in these programs. But we won't know that until March of next.
Had we have stayed at 105%, we would have had operational issues in terms of, we would have had financial issues. By not staying at 500% and moving to 105%, moving to 100, that's letting us balance them out. Correct?
So
Yeah.
if you lose vouchers, but all your vouchers are assigned, does that
So-
mean people lose their vouchers that are housed?
Technically, right now, we lose about our attrition rate is about 4 vouchers a month. So that's what we pay attention to. So if we lose 4 and we don't think we can add those 4 back, our vouchers just decrease. So, and a lot of it's, due to, people may port out and then we never hear from them. They may, they may lose their voucher for particular things that fraud, where they haven't reported certain stuff. So based on our attrition rate, because we submit stuff to HUD on a bi-weekly basis, on move-ins, move-outs, our attrition rate's about 4 vouchers a month is we lose. So it's a game we play every month to say, okay, where are we at today? Where do we need to be tomorrow? And how are we gonna bankrupt ourselves in two years? Which is what the 2-year tool is.
Yeah. Okay, I was thinking in terms of how many vouchers we are entitled to.
So we're entitled to about 518. I think we're up to 518. But with the fair market standard there and our rent base right now, there's no way we could get up to that
So
voucher.
is fair market standard based on the entire city?
It's based on county, so it's based on state
So it's based
and
on
county.
county?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
You can get it down to the level of zip code. So you can go down to the level of zip code, but we also try to keep in balance with Boulder County because they're also offering vouchers in Longmont.
I understand.
And so it's,
I'm trying to gauge how they determine fair market.
Now, this is county.
And so a county fair market may be a little out of whack for Longmont.
Yeah.
The challenge we have is you have Boulder County and you have Boulder Housing Partners that say, okay, we're at 105% or 110. So what we have to be careful with is if we get too Longmont specific, then the private landlords may be more apt to take the county vouchers or the housing partner vouchers because they get more money.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the reaction of residents that are in market rent apartments that are gonna look at these numbers and go, whoa.
Yeah, well, that's, looking at these numbers, like, I know people that rent market rate apartments for less than that.
Way less than that.
Yeah.
So recall that the housing choice vouchers are intended to have people go into market rate housing.
Yes, no, I
Just-
understand, it's just, they're big.
Got it.
And the amount of, the value of the voucher depends on the income of the individual and what they qualify for. Closes the gap between that number and what they can actually qualify as they qualify for their share of the rent.
Correct, and it's actually why it gets hard with the tenants when we talk about rental increases and all of these issues. Like literally when I go in and talk to them, I start off with saying, the first thing that everybody needs to know is not everybody's rent is going to be the same rent amount, because on the voucher side, you have the income difference. Well, even in the different AMI units, you have income differences that play, and so it really is based on the individual.
And how clear do you think are residents about the implication, not so much on the voucher program, but if I dial back the conversation a few minutes in terms of what ends up in the general fund and what you can do or can't do and how you're going to cover shortfalls, whether it's rock in a garden or something else. How aware are residents of the variables you're managing here relative to budget and what that translates into in terms of either amenities or service or like the VIA transportation? Is that part of your coffee conversation with them?
We do talk to them. I think it depends on it is really specific to the individual. Some really get it when we're in those conversations, and they end up helping to try to communicate to the other residents about here's what it is. Others don't, and others are like, well, we want this is what we need. And I think part of that, or what we want, part of that is also because there is a transition in many cases from single-family residential into multifamily or private apartments to affordable apartments, and really having to work to say there really are some budget restrictions that we have to deal with. And I would say this year has been better in the coffee and conversations versus the last 2 years. So I think they are starting to get that, but it really is just about communicating. And after we had one at Spring Creek, I had some residents come to me and go, well, we need the rock. Why you told us it was budgeted? It's like, yes, I did say it was budgeted, but the gas prices went up and we needed to make sure we could pay the gas bill. And we're managing these budgets on a monthly, they're managing it on a daily basis. Kendra looks at it on a bi-weekly basis, and then when there are issues, then it kind of, and so it's better, but it's still a struggle.
So this is just kind of a historical look at what the tax credit rent increases are. So for our tax credit properties, in 2022 is where we had the biggest hike. It was about 7%, and just this last year in April, the increase was almost 6%. So, but then again in 2020 and 2021, we had very, very, very small amounts. And I'm sure that was related to COVID and everything like that. But technically, even prior to that, it was anywhere from 3 to 4% is usually what we see. I don't know what we'll see this year. I mean, everybody's has inflation all over the board, so whether or not they caught that inflation in 2022 and 2023 and it'll be a lighter year, that's what we won't know, and we won't know until April when they release those new amounts. Which happens. So these are other items that we have added into our 2024 budget. I'll go through them and then I'll let Harold speak a little more about the assistant director. We have added in this budget an assistant director. It's currently budgeted 5% HCB and 95% LHA. It is dependent on the MIHA, the Ascent, and Atwood projects. And the reason we've added into the budget now is because we won't know that outcome until the November timeframe for those properties. We are adding
November or
this November. Yeah, this November. We're adding another custodian. One custodian at 5 hours at each property was just not enough. So we've added another one so each property can have 10 hours. The resource specialist, which was last year budgeted at the suites and the Hearthstone and the Lodge. We wanted to keep that service for the Hearthstone and the Lodge, but we didn't feel that the resource specialist, based on things that have happened, was not the best fit for the suites. So we've switched that to a clinician one. With the fair market rents increasing, we were able to do that, and with what's allowed by the investors for supportive services, we're allowed to put a clinician one at the suites instead. And then the resource specialist, the 60% LHA funded, will be for the other properties. So we couldn't put it down to the other properties. We tried, but we were in the hole. So LHA is currently funding the 60% for that resource specialist, and we'll have to see, how we progress in years forward to see if that can be moved to the properties.
That actually goes to what do you do when you don't have enough money and you start figuring out how you need to do this. What was behind the resource specialist and the shift here is that when we created it, if you remember, it was primarily for the suites, and it was because of the issues that we were seeing with different residents and trying to manage it. What we've really learned through the process is that is not the right position, because we really need someone that is in that clinician role that can handle, trauma and significant mental health issues. And I think that created part of the turnover in the resource specialist, because that's not what those individuals do. So that was the shift, and so the resource specialist will be working with all the housing authority properties. The clinician one is going to be specifically at the suites. That's also connected to the adjustment that council made with the marijuana funding, where we have the two clinicians that the clinician threes that we're gonna fund out of the remaining marijuana funding. All of those clinicians will be housed at the suites. The difference is the clinicians 2 or 3 will be able to support the other housing authority properties and other city issues related to mental health, and work in conjunction with League for Senior Services and Children, Youth and Family Services.
So what are the qualifications for a clinician as opposed to a resource specialist? Is a clinician and Masters of Social Work type program?
They're mental health professionals. And based on a 1, 2, or 3 is your experience and your certification. So it's a different skill set.
Yeah, but what's a resource specialist?
So, for example, a resource specialist connects people and navigates them to resources that they need. So if somebody is in need of figuring out how to get Social Security benefits or disability qualifications, or just needs help here and there financially, or I need help from senior services for this, or other organizations for certain things, they're more of a connector than a crisis management working through.
Like a council member?
Yes. Oh, I thought you were going to say counselor, but yes, a connector to resources. So.
And what you have done as a housing authority and as a city council is pretty pivotal, because there's some, and I don't understand these state programs. So there's some state programs out there that says, oh, you can get funding to help with this work, but you have to be at
15-to-1 case management ratio,
right,
which is very aggressive. They would like to even see 12-to-1 to even qualify for state funds for supportive services. So they're asking basically for the moon when you're asking for just a leg up to get started. So this is our leg up to try and get closer to accessing that.
to leverage more state dollars.
So in this case, the ratio would be, if, well, no, what would be,
Well,
if they were full-time at the suites, it'd be 1 to 16, it sounds like.
so if we have, so we get to count, MHP does bring in a caseworker as
I
well,
was
not
thinking
necessarily
MHP
clinician.
MHP.
But with all the
That's
bodies
okay.
on site there for the support services function, they have 2 people there for 40 hours total. And then we would have the clinician 1, 2, and 3, even though these wouldn't be on site all the time. But that is now, we're down to 1 to 20 rather than.
Does Sarah Arnie coordinate the
Yeah,
deployment of those clinicians?
She's part of
outside
it.
the suites?
So what we're working on right now at the Center of Excellence model is, yes, she's interfacing with it, but what we did with the neighborhood impact team, we're actually creating a mental health team in the same model. And so Sarah will be interfacing with that in public safety, which is why I said now globally, you're going to see our senior service staff, our youth service, our leading core staff, and the clinicians here working as a center of excellence, so they're supporting each other in different environments.
Before we leave this slide, I see Mia up here. Apparently you bought some time.
We have that as an item to talk about later, just as a
Tonight
discussion
or-
tonight. We
But
did
you got it dialed in here, for at least for this budget model.
Yeah, so the assistant director is one of those, we need to budget it, but it's one of those where we will be talking to the commissioners about this as we move forward, because it doesn't mean that we're just going to open it up and go. Because there's some points that are really critical as we look at how we finance this over time. And you actually will see that as we start looking at the fund balance and the work that Kendra's actually done to really start projecting into the future what fund balance is looking like. Because not all of these revenue streams are going to come on at once. And so we'll, when we get to the fund balance sheet, we'll talk about this position.
Well, okay. I'm just more curious about NEHA, since we recently talked about what to or not to do with this proposal.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that because we do need some direction from the Housing Authority Board as we look at this, but we did buy ourselves some more time. Now we're trying to figure all of this out.
So the other things are, we did plan a 5% increase plan for all of our services across the board. We did save money by moving snow removal into the LHA, along with providing an additional revenue stream with that. So for example, in 2023, our contracts, our snow contract, which actually is 2022 to 2023, is $145,000. We've reduced it to $98,000, and that is to provide 2 trucks, the maintenance on those trucks, the gas on those trucks, and also fund a reserve replacement so that we can replace these trucks every 8 years is what Cash gave me, and that's with the brand new truck. But what's been happening is we're getting the city goes and buys brand new trucks, and then we get a fleet truck, which is great too. But at least we're budgeting for it. We're budgeting for an increase. So what we're putting in the reserve is with a 4.5% planned increase on car cost. So two brand new vehicles would have cost like $217,000 in 8 years. But realize that's a truck with the snow plow and the sander. It's got a lot of other amenities with it.
The truck alone's about $75,000 to $85,000.
All the other functional stuff takes it up.
Yeah.
So I think this will help not only LHA, but it'll also help the properties operating budgets, because it was getting costly, and if we have massive snows like we have in the last couple of years, it just was a lot.
It's supposed to be that kind of winter.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, we we own the truck, the first truck now. We have the keys, it's in our name. As of last week, it's insured. So the crews are doing training with Cash on the sand material and doing all. So we are ready for the first snow with 1 truck. Yeah, so your question earlier about, looking at supply chain, that's what hit the second truck, because the order that we put in for the others got denied. There's another order in that we're watching, maybe we can get it earlier. We're trying to find, we went to Toro to look for a Toro sidewalk cleaner, can't find them. So now we're looking at, I think, John Deere and Kubota to try to find one. If we can't find it, we may buy some larger snow blowers to use on the sidewalks for this year. I did talk to Cash about if we do that, we always have folks on the city that look for snow blowers. So then we'll sell the snow blowers back to the city when we can get the other piece of equipment so we can fund it. So definitely everyone's getting ready. We also talked about if needed in a significant storm, obviously we would work with our operation crews to come in and help us on emergency access. So without that, our budgets, we're having a much more difficult time putting the budget together.
I know that people buy snow blowers and use them on their own, but the thing is that in the situation in the city, do we certify them to run those? Because that always concerns me when somebody is operating something that rip your arm off type of situation.
Yeah, Tim was telling us all about that.
Am I channeling your thinking?
You are literally repeating it.
Yes, I mean, all equipment, we work with risk to make sure our folks are trained. Like, don't leave it running to try to get the clog out, use the shovel that comes with it.
Okay.
All of
Yeah,
those
I
things.
just always worry that's,
Yeah.
such a liability compared to the truck with the thing in the front there that you just.
That's a liability too, in cars.
Oh, I know, especially with the, those little things we have in some of our parking lots with the little stop bars.
So you do know in snow removal, what we are telling the folks is they've been asking us to snow blow and do things in between the cars. And for liability reasons, we're not doing that because I can just see what's gonna happen the minute we start getting in between cars. So you may hear that from the residents, but we've been pretty clear over and over and over from a liability perspective. We're gonna get the path clean. Some of the facilities are working with other residents to help each other get out between cars, but it's just not, that's not a place we literally want to go to.
Well, I just think it tosses up so much, especially when you're throwing out stuff with snow blowers too, rocks and whatnot.
And then we've done the same as the city has done a 4.64% increase on market for salary increases. So here is our general fund forecast. This is our start and our first. Basically, it's an adjusted fund balance at the very beginning, and the reason that is because if you look at LHA's financials, we have a lot of money in notes receivable, but the notes receivable, similar to the loans that you kind of forgave, most of those are probably going to be forgiven during the re-syndication, or most of it we're not going to get back, so I don't count that as money coming in. So it's literally our current cash and any AR that I know that's coming in within a year or two that I put in fund balance. Then you'll see we have developer fees, and those developer fees are AMSA. We have the suites developer fees. It also includes Village on Main developer fees that are coming in. Those are the ones we know for sure. Then you have our management fees. So our current properties today are about 396. Now realize our management fees are a percentage of our gross receipts. So if we're making collections, then we're getting a larger amount. We base it off of the actual income, income minus vacancies is how so if we have less vacancies, we'll have more revenue coming in on the management fees. We added Zinnia, because Zinnia is not something we're going to get developer fees, but it's something we're going to get management fees for. We have corporate management fees, which are currently from LHTC. Anything kind of in black is an automatic amount that's going to happen every year. Anything that you see in blue is functioning off the percentage increase, and this is just a first. I just did a 4 and a 3 based on an increase that you could see every year, whether that's a 4% increase in rents or it's a 4% increase in inflation.
You hadn't said there were blue numbers there. I wouldn't have noticed the difference.
It's kind of hard to see it up there. Maybe I should do it. Red probably would be a better. And then we have snow removal. So we're going to have snow removal revenue coming in. We also have snow removal in our maintenance operations as an expense. And then our others just planned things that we could possibly have. We have some in the budget this for 2024. And we could have them, so I just budgeted as such. Then you have the expenditures. You have your administrative, which is mainly salaries. It's mainly salaries, legal, and the city staff, the consultant amounts that come into that. You have tenant services. That $71,000 is the mobility. That is for the Hearthstone and the Lodge, along with the resource specialist. So if we continue that, service, the 60%, we'll just see a growing increase for that. Do you have a question?
But why do you forecast based on 4% when in the odd years and 3% in the even years?
That's something we have to dive in deeper in our next round of general fund. This was just like a first to give kind of a snapshot of what we can see. What I have to do is kind of see what is the standard increase we're seeing. So if we've increased, so I could have done 5% this year because we're increasing rents 5%. So technically your management fees would go up 5%. It's determining what we're actually going to see in increases, and I haven't done that analysis to see if there's a platform that could give me a forecast to determine what that is. So that's just a plug number right now. It will obviously change from year to year, and we probably got to get a better way to forecast that. But I just wanted to I knew we were going to have increases every year, so wanted to make sure we forecasted for it, just so we can see, what we want to get to is not only seeing our fund balances, but when we actually need to start doing development again, so that we're getting those developer fees in, if we're not getting continued revenue from other sources to pay for our administrative costs. The maintenance operations is, most of that is, we do have maintenance salaries there because our supervisor and we have a tech too, that the budgets at the properties just can't handle their full amounts. So LHA is helping fund their salaries along with the costs that are going to come with the trucks that we have for snow removal. General is mainly insurance, so that's going to be our insurance costs that LHA has. A lot of that's more related to directors. We do have some commercial property that we have insurance on, so that's that. And then the other expenses right now, for the $59,500, the reason I put that in there is because we haven't paid for the second truck yet. So that's kind of the second truck with some extra amenities in there in case we don't know what that cost could fluctuate. And then I just added, we could have other expenses. So in 2024, our projected ending fund balance would be 2.6. By 2030, our projected fund balance would be $543,000. That's without the Hover project. So if Ascent gets approved, that's what the red is down below, because we would get developer fees from that, and those would start coming in. So what we want to do is get to a platform where we have enough properties that are either going to re-syndicate and you're going to continue to get developer fees coming in, or properties that we're managing so that our platform stays in balance.
So what this tells me, so to answer your question, this is our first run at forecasting. I'm not sure that the Housing Authority's ever forecasted in terms of what the future looks like. So when I saw this, assuming Hover doesn't come in, so let's say we don't get in this tax credit round, but we get in at the next one, you just slide those numbers over. So when I talked about the assistant director position, so we said Hover's in the mix, Atwood's in the mix, Neha's in the mix. If one version of those hits, then what we would really look at doing is, so we look at the fund balance, and let me back up. When you see the ending fund balance, I think when we start, and Commissioner Waters, you're going to have to help me. I think prior to this, I think the best that we know is what the fund balance tended to be between 1.5 million and 2 million, somewhere in that range, historically over time. So what you see is with the development work that we're doing, we're actually taking that fund balance to 2.6, 3.2, 2.7. If one of these projects hits, we have enough capacity in the fund balance for me to go ahead and fund the assistant director position, knowing that ongoing revenue is going to hit in about 25 or 26, so that I have ongoing funding planned, but we're using the fund balance to start the position to get it going. The other thing that this tells me, that I think what we saw in the Housing Authority that was part of the challenge financially, is it also tells us it's very clear that we need to have a project in 2026 go. from a development perspective. And then if we do that, instead of sliding to 2.7, we may slide to 3.5. And then it starts shifting that fund balance out over time. And then it starts informing the development schedule in terms of what we need to do to stay whole financially. And that's the big piece. Now you see if we get whole Ascent in, the numbers change dramatically, but it still tells me that at 2026, we want another project going in because that's going to keep pushing our fund balance up as we look to the future for the housing authority. So this is really good stuff when we start looking at development schedule and what we need to do financially, and we can start becoming more, not focused, we can become more planned in terms of the developments that we're bringing on in the future.
Okay, but the regular numbers up there at the top for the forecast amounts are almost a demonstration at this point, whereas if you had firmer dates for holder and other things, then you could put real numbers in there.
The top piece, that's actual, so that's what we would say is probably pretty close to worst case scenario. The projected ending fund balance where you see it go from 2.6 to 5.
Oh, no, that's not what I was asking.
Oh.
I was asking the 4% and the 3%. You wouldn't have, those numbers are not based on an expected reality. They're just based on, to show what the forecast percentage does.
Knowing we would have an increase.
No one would have an increase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so, but if you knew when Ascent was gonna land and et cetera, then you would change those to more accurate numbers.
No, those would still, because that's expense, that's expense increases. So we would,
Those changes would show up down here.
they would
Yeah.
show up down at the bottom
No, I
in terms of
understand,
fund
but
balance.
I'm still struggling with the idea that these are made-up numbers. What would you do to
So-
make those real numbers?
So let's just take the current properties. So current properties right now, for the management fees is $396,000. In 2025, I'm expecting, like, let's say we have a 4% rent increase. If we have a 4% rent increase, then my current properties, my management fees are gonna increase by 4%.
No, yeah, and
So it's just a way to forecast.
I understand that. What I don't understand is how you can say, in 2025, I'm gonna assume it's 4%, and in 2026, I'm gonna assume that it's 3%. What informs those numbers? And when I asked the first time, I think you said, I don't know, and I just picked numbers.
Correct, to
So-
give us a forecast.
Right, so what would it take to be able to pick numbers that made, that were related to reality?
Well, it'll never be related to reality because what we're going to have to do is go back and look at what historically has been the increase over time. And then, we would try to figure the type of, we would run some type of regression analysis or something to look at, well, what does that look looking forward? But whatever we put up there will never.
Well, I know it's never gonna be
Yeah.
exact reality.
Right, so we would have to do some work like that to go back farther in time to kind of see what's happened, and that's the work we need to do for the next budget. So this one was really starting it, knowing that it's going to get
Yeah.
fine-tuned
No,
over
yeah,
the next
and-
budget.
And I
Yeah.
was accepting
Yeah.
that that's the best you can do for now.
Yeah.
I was trying to ask, to do better, what would you need to know?
We would need to get the data and really make sure that it's right
Mhm.
in previous years, and then run some type of regression analysis on it to figure out what is, what do we really forecast based on.
Outside of data collecting, since we've taken over, is there any sort of portal or any information source that would give you that kind of data?
That's what we need to find out.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, that would
Yeah.
be the
I feel like
next.
you're working.
I mean,
Yeah.
having been dealing with multiplicative regression analysis
Yeah.
for the last 2 months myself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any
Yeah.
suggestions?
the fact of how many data points they're sticking into a system, and the system still doesn't really work great.
Right.
That's where I'm coming
It
down.
gets you kind of in an area.
It gets you in there, but once you get in an atypical situation,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. And so,
And that's a problem right now because we're in potentially an atypical situation with what we've seen in rent increases and all of that. So we don't want to be overly aggressive because reality may be that.
Modeling it on
annual
what happened the last
increase
2 years is not
percent,
going to
right.
be accurate.
Right, that's,
So I was just wondering if you're basically taking most of your data points from in-house data collection versus some external source.
Well, what I would like to do is take what we have and then also see if we can get some of the other housing authorities to look at what they have. I will tell you that I'm not sure that many of them do this. I just know that there's other housing authorities in the area that are having struggles right now with their operating expenses and things like that, which is why we got into this. So we'll have to work through that.
I would tell you, having looked at budgets for the last half dozen years, we've never seen anything like this. And this is really helpful to inform the kinds of decisions and the urgency of decision-making in the out years, right, from 2004 on.
So like when we see 2026, what Molly and I have talked about is that's Royal Mobile Home Park.
Yeah.
And that's getting that project teed up so that we can be more methodical versus, I mean, all the development projects to date, we have been screaming. I'm really excited actually about this sheet.
All right.
That's a huge step.
All right.
So the next is just going into all of the property budgets. What
So
I,
just real quick,
yeah.
would this also be the property detailed budget comparison?
Well,
In the
if you
agenda?
want to see the detail, we can go into the detail. This is the summarized version.
Okay.
So this is the summarized, the detailed goes into every single expenditure on
Well,
every
just
single
noting it
budget.
as the next item on
Oh, I
the
didn't know it was
agenda.
separate.
yeah, that's, yeah, where's it?
No, this is still the,
I get it.
Yeah.
I was like, does this run into that or no? This is separate.
well, if you guys,
This is the
what I would
roll-up.
say, what I would propose on the detailed ones, is do you want to go into the detail? This is the summarized version of the detail.
Yeah.
So each one of these, I tried to do it by campus. What you can see, and Aspen Meadows Senior is one that I will tell you does not have project-based vouchers. So we budget conservatively for those tenant-based vouchers. And each one of these, I let you know how many vouchers on the tenant side we have. So for Aspen Meadows, we have 11 vouchers. We're expecting, let's say all of those were not in that budget, we would have a $2,000 net income after everything, plus the mortgages and the reserve replacements that have to be paid as well. But if we do have those tenants stay for the entire year, we would have another $123,000 that would come in revenue stream for that property.
And this is going to sound crass, but one of the biggest issues in our age-restricted units in terms of vouchers is mortality. And then can't say that's going to stay there. Whoever gets that next voucher has a choice. So that's why you see we were conservative, and then you see what real world may look like.
And for next year, we'd like to get to a point, so I'm tasked with trying to figure out like what does our vouchers look like? Like if we've had 11 for the last 5 years, do we budget 50% of that HCV money coming in and kind of get a better idea on how to count for those vouchers? But right now, we just didn't count for them to see where we could be at. But that's what I would like to see next year, is to be able to forecast those vouchers and do a percentage into the budget. Aspen Meadows neighborhood is looking good. We are trying to do both a meth reserve and a capital reserve replacement so that we can have money to do these things that these properties would like to have, and have that funding if it needs to happen right then and right there. Well, yeah, I mean, senior apartments, I can't do anything there. So I can't do a meth reserve or a capital improvement.
No, I
reserve.
understand.
Now,
Luckily, the senior apartments was just renovated completely top to bottom too, so hopefully.
so what you're seeing are the choices. When you go, well, what happens if in the HUD 202 they don't approve it? We don't have those kind of reserves. Now, at the end of the day, if you see the voucher stay, then you inherently do have that reserve that you can fall back on if you need it.
Yeah. Aspen Meadows Neighbor does have PBV vouchers, but they only have 4 HCV tenant vouchers. Fall River does have PBV vouchers, so it's putting us, and here's where the developer fee comes in. I'm only estimating the $10,000 payment to LHDC for their developer fee. Technically, we would want to get to a point to where they projected it when they actually closed on the property, because they give you that projection of what should happen. And I don't think we've been able to follow the Fall River one based on what's happening. Spring Creek is another one that has absolutely no PBV vouchers. We're gonna be pretty light, but that does include meth and capital improvement reserves, but they have 19 HCV vouchers. Now with this property, that was Village Place. This property I didn't count. For the downtown campus, which is Village on Main is at about 39, and then Briarwood, 47. One has 15 vouchers, one has 3 vouchers. And then we have the Hearthstone and the Lodge. And Hearthstone and the Lodge, we have to go down to the penny on those ones. It's kind of what they require. So that's where we're at today. The Suites has a pretty good developer fee payment included in their number. That's $80,000 we're expecting to pay LHA for their developer fees. And this is all based on cash flow. So if we have more cash flow that comes into the property, then it would be a larger payment. Then we have our voucher program. Last year we had budgeted about 5.7. We're at about 6.2. They did give us additional funding this year. So we expect, just based on the 2-year tool, where we would be at, because you gotta kind of look at that as it goes forward. Not spend all of it in 1 year to make sure that you're using your reserves. Because that 6.2 includes our reserve money. And then you have our admin. And our admin is based on 410 vouchers, having 410 vouchers throughout the whole year. If we have more vouchers, we'll have more admin, and they adjust that on a quarterly basis, HUD does, and they'll give us more money based on our voucher count.
To be clear, unlike how the housing authority was operated before, like the cost, I think specifically for Molly and myself, none of that cost is being allocated to HCD because we didn't want to have that crossover because that creates issues. So all of the costs associated with Molly and myself actually comes out of the general fund. And Deanne. Sorry, and Deanne.
Correct, Deanne does too. Yeah, the only people budgeted in HCD are accounting staff, our HCD specialists, our manager, and the 5% of the assistant director is budgeted there at the moment as well. And then this is our SRO program. This is the in-between. These are their mod rehab vouchers, and that's also a budget that gets approved by HUD as well. So our Briarwood office, it's coming down to the wire for that based on what happens. The people that are in tenant, the BCP, they pay a 40% portion of the utilities, and then we pay a 60% for the actual apartments. So that's what the utilities you see there. But it's also, we get revenue from that too, so. And then we have added the Adrian House. The Adrian House is a new project for us, and it's city-based. So we'll be reporting to the city and doing cash flow surpluses on a quarterly basis back into the city's fund, depending on what balances are left, and paying the Affordable Housing Fund back for the money that they spent to rehab the facility.
That's the
Open space.
yeah.
And then we have our general fund, which we've kind of went over in our general fund analysis. and then the Longmont Housing Development Corp. So this is something we've got to start looking into. Now that LHDC is staying on board because we can't move Fall River because of related party debt, we need to get donations. And I know there's several talks about being able to do different type of donations to support tenant services, to support development, but to start actually getting funding into LHDC because it is a 501(c)(3). They require donations to come into that. And right now they pay LHA $150,000 for the corporate management fee for their properties, but we may have to start looking at a different equation if.
How small could a donation be when we start going? I was just thinking that, what if on our utility bill, people who wanted to help people with the issue around housing and wanted to have a direct impact, gave once a month $20 to our utility billing to some sort of thing like that, and then by the end of the year they've made a small amount, $140 or so donation, but they would you have multiple families feeling like they're giving a little something might be significant enough, and also would have the numbers that you're maybe looking for too.
The only thing I would say there is, I think it would depend on if they want the tax benefit. Because if it's a utility bill, it's going to the city, it's not coming to LHDC, and LHDC is a 501(c)(3), so if I was giving money, I'd probably want to give it to the 501(c)(3), so I could use the tax benefit associated with it.
Still do it like we do. It would be akin to our giving campaign where we put it, but the city takes the money and then gives it to the organization, and so you can still claim the deduction that way. There may be a way to do it. Actually.
I'm just thinking that it might be if you're also looking for a number of people donating, and that might be a small, and maybe you cap it, maybe you on the have a floor to it and have a ceiling to it or something like that, so you're not doing too much interface with it, but it might be something that people feel like they would be helping in a real positive way when we start talking about affordable, attainable, and all these other things, and trying to get people housed. This would make people feel like they were having some sort of direct impact.
Yeah, I mean,
But at the end of the day, aren't we trying to kind of make the LHDC go away?
We were, but if you remember the whole issue with that with Fall River, we really can't have them go away. So we need to keep the tax exempt status there, and
maybe there's a limit to it, like a.
Well, I was wondering if it's really beneficial to give another revenue source to the LHDC.
they're really a pass-through. We would have to, we would have to structure it where you would create a donation account, and the donation account would have, you would have a revenue stream and an expenditure stream, where the expenditure stream goes to from the LHDC into the LHA for resident activities to paint in the.
It sounds extremely bureaucratic. Which, bureaucracy is one thing, but like that's a lot of different layers there.
It is, and it's all
to
tax.
get where you want to go.
Yeah, it's all tax.
So, I'm not sure, but I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just want to get them
I
out
don't
of
want
the
to belabor that point though.
That would be the end of those slides. If we want to go into the details, we want to go into the next two, they're listed as options.
Okay.
It's completely up to you if you guys just have questions.
As far as 2 and 3 being detailed budget comparisons.
Yeah, they're just basically all the line item details.
All right,
of
fair
these.
enough.
Yeah.
First off though, I don't believe there were any actionable points of that presentation.
Well, I think what we need, when we do the budgets for the housing authority, is So if you want to go over the detailed information, then we can go over that. And if you have no questions on the detailed information, then you can approve the budget as presented.
Okay, so first off then, we'll start with questions on this presentation.
What we just saw is the roll-up of all the detailed information, which is the way you've done it the last couple of years. No, what questions I have been answered.
Okay.
Me too.
I have a question about the roll-up, which is that, as you pointed out, some of these are really close to the bone. So what I want to understand is what happens if some risk happens, some risk turns out the bad way on one of these projects that's got pennies of leeway in the budget. What do we do? How do we make it up? How do we avoid a real loss as opposed to a paper loss? What happens? Because that's the only circumstance under which I can think about where I would want to look at that situation.
So the first answer is what we talked about with the vouchers. And so what you're kind of seeing is what you're seeing in the roll-up is the most conservative look that we can take.
Mm-hmm.
We know there's revenue coming in via vouchers, we just didn't include it in the revenue side. As we're able to, again, create that forecast that maybe in the future budget we do 25–50%. So we have that revenue that comes in that we can utilize. So that's option one, because we don't think we're going to lose all 11 vouchers in 1 year. The second option is that if we had an issue, then that's where we would start looking at fund balance from the LHA general fund to help with property-specific issues, in conjunction with budget cuts, similar to what I talked about with, we're not going to do the rock this year, we're not going to pull the trigger on the rock until we know we're okay with budget. So it is really real-time budget, managing the budgets as we're going through the year.
Is this the same rock that the lady was talking about in public and budget?
Yes.
And sometimes it's, we send these financials off to the investors every month. We go through it, we look at every anomaly, and we'll say, hey, you're over budget here, watch out. Or you have savings because maybe we had somebody budgeted there that wasn't, it was a vacant spot. And now it's filled and they've selected single coverage and we put family into the budget. And so we'll have cost savings under the salary side.
Little windfalls.
Yeah, so it's, it's a monthly review that we do. I know we like it in the very first few months because there's not very many anomalies yet, but once second quarter hits is usually when we start seeing those.
Aaron,
Yeah.
I just make one observation. I have no questions. I just want to say thank you for the printout with font that's large enough to read.
Oh, yeah, no, I really
I just
like
want to
it.
acknowledge
Yeah.
that didn't go unappreciated.
Erica pinged me this morning, do you want to print these off?
So any further questions on this portion? No? Okay, then the second question is, does the commission want to hear either items D2 or D3 on detailed budget comparisons specifically? Seeing none. I would assume then the next step is to have a motion to approve the
Budget
budget
as presented.
as presented.
And I
Okay.
move to approve the budget as presented.
Second.
Okay,
I do think in approving this budget, there's an action we need to take regarding the compensation of the interim executive director. Is that not true?
Yeah, if you all wanted to reflect, and I need the same direction from Molly and Deanne.
As I recall, when we've gone through this process, we've approved a budget with the caveat or with a separate motion to
Right.
authorize compensation based on the compensation plan we've agreed to that's going to be paid out of this budget.
so it feels like an amendment.
Well, maybe it's a separate motion. Maybe it's the
It could be a
first,
separate
maybe it
motion.
precedes budget
It's
approval.
a separate motion.
Let me move, but could we just do it that way to point of order? I'm going to move that in addition to what we see in this budget, that we authorize 20% of base compensation for the interim, in this case, base compensation of the city manager as interim director of the housing authority. And we need to do the same thing for Molly,
And Deanne.
for Molly and Deanne, that 20% of their base compensation as part of this budget to be approved.
And Deanna's 10%.
Seconded.
Okay,
I just want to make sure.
so I'll actually take that motion out of order in a sense, point of order, as a point of order, that the interim director and Molly receive the 20% and Deanne receives the 10%.
Correct.
And there was, so that was a motion by Commissioner Waters and a second by Commissioner McCoy. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. Now we can move to the second motion on the table, which is a motion to approve the budget as presented, considering the previously passed motion. That was moved by Commissioner Martin and seconded by, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hidalgo Ferry. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll take that vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that motion passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. All right, with that, it has been about 2 hours. Is this a good stopping point maybe for a quick 5-minute break?
Sure.
All right, then we'll take a 5-minute break real quick. Just 'cause I have to
So you were worried about,
My sister-in-law is a plastic surgeon, does like reconstructive stuff.
These guys.
And just had to put hands back together from that, from reaching in to well, they get jammed, turn them off.
No, yeah.
But that doesn't relieve the tension in there, and so people
No, I just-
reach in there if they can't
What I
turn
was
it
trying to
off.
say is, you know.
And then free the jam, and it releases the tension, so it just shreds things.
Oh, and then
And then I saw
I
you put, well, then I saw you put
September
numbers on
25th.
there already, so.
My
And
uncle,
if
a
something
dairy farmer,
breaks,
was out this combine.
So like if you have a boiler that goes out, we don't pull out this budget, we go to the investor
And
and pull out of the.
cut off his hand that way
Right.
on my
So,
sister's birthday.
Assuming
Oh, man,
that.
it's like, why didn't you have this tape
Director materializes.
It's also my daughter.
Are you-
So they should, so the thing is that Uncle Martin, the one-armed bandit, as we keep. Yeah.
No.
always,
Remember you guys were having this stuff?
Then we
You know,
will.
that was the no.
Because-
We started a team together.
You have a particular sensitivity to that.
That my goodness, people should be careful.
Anytime the subject of a snowblower is uttered anywhere near my sister-in-law, she like,
Don't do it.
You need me to get the pictures out
Do I
My credit cards.
of the x-rays?
You
It's,
guys, we have to talk about
We'll get into the budget, so we probably.
CA compliance items. Because I want to, I'm just booking Leo to come out in December to come and certify all the ones that we have done.
Okay.
So all the maintenance guys need to keep in that tracker that
So
Davis
is it better?
used.
No, it's
better.
Just tell them that we're trying to
Well, I
get
appreciated
out
what you did
whatever we
last year.
can.
And we did touch on this last week in my maintenance meeting, so David,
You
we
brought
every
us the
F1 right
roll-up,
now.
but you also
At the
brought
start, and
with
I'll
that
meet with him on
the
Thursday, we're gonna get like one, we're gonna
Which
start
was
going
real
over
helpful.
ongoing stuff.
I know you had to do
Start
another, go through
thinking
another
more
kind of round
of, I know he's been really consumed with
discussion
place
more
stuff,
so we get
and try to get all those final things done.
commission and get budget approval.
I'll meet with him.
But this is really the best I've ever, you know, in six cycles I've seen.
Units that
We're just
require a lot of
trying
work.
to,
Both of
4
them
years
are
ago, we gotta make them 30.
One is a meth unit, because it required a lot of stuff, so
Hey, Shakita.
we're gonna probably do that one in-house, even though we have insurance done, just so we can do all the
Okay.
movement of items.
I would also say for stuff like moving a mirror
Uh-oh.
an inch, have them take a picture with a tape measure, because maybe Don, Leo doesn't have to go into every unit to look at that. If we can show him the picture verifies the new height, I was like, maybe that would be fine, at least minimize the amount of.
Inch.
An inch, moving the mirror down an
That
inch.
is ridiculous.
A bunch of them,
ADA
a bunch of them, they went in there.
The lodge where we have to, put up the cabinets.
You so
that unit
sweet.
just become vacant.
Thank you.
So Calvin's working on removing cabinets and making them ADA compliant.
Wonderful. As you heard, they're closing out,
Oh, I'm sure
That's
there's.
not- but we are hitting a lot of items.
Yeah.
So,
And Patrick and I sat down and went through AMSA and AMN, and we can almost have everything knocked out this year. So that is his goal, and we've kind of structured how to do it. When I'm there, we have them printed out on the desk, so we can hit it almost twice a week.
yeah, and just whenever you can. It's not, if we miss some, maybe Leo wants to see them all anyway, but photos might eliminate, I think, of having to go back and get you ones.
Some of the easy ones, I was like, try, just order it, try like 4 managers now have Amazon accounts. So I'm like, just $6 in the pipe, just order it. Just,
My husband and I went out to
So
7 days
Tim,
on Sunday night.
on HUD's email from 2 weeks ago asking about the VCA forward, I've been scanning through, I can't figure out what they're talking about, so I just sent it to Leo and said, what do you think they're asking for? It doesn't make it, everything is there, I don't know what they're not
Yeah,
seeing.
I couldn't figure out what they were asking about either.
I just
It was-
verified, every single item has a target date for completion, every single item in the photos is reflected in the list, so I'm asking Leo to do a look, but if not, I'm gonna have to ask them. We need
Could
to
you
have a
explain?
talk or
Yeah.
something, because I don't know what we're asking for.
Yeah, you can.
Because it's, and it was the same as we sent the year before.
It's not so bad.
It was
Functionally, it
the
was the
final,
little
we
scene.
submitted the final whole thing, December 2022, and it was our first comments on it.
I mean,
And I
the
don't-
response when I get,
I'm just
when
like,
we talk
did
to
they like
people,
lose some of the PDFs or something? I don't know what is going
they're
on.
happy.
So,
I almost wondered if
Content.
they.
And they're appreciative for what we do. They're not
approved
getting
it,
the,
and they realized
the
that no
vitriol
one said
that
anything
you,
about it, so
you know,
they
you
wanted to like
see
keep it
online.
open, but not be vague about it.
maybe.
And I'm like, no, that's
So
not
Leo's usually
what
really good
I'm
with doing
hearing when
that.
I go to the doors.
We have to
Leo
respond
is the
by,
guy.
Oh.
he's the
And then
compliance.
I get, every once in a while, I get
Yeah.
that next door.
Yeah.
Approve the plan.
So this,
I have to respond to HUD by
right
the end of
here.
this month, so a couple weeks.
Hey, Doc.
And tomorrow is,
What?
and
Oh,
then
right.
it's, so it's like
Okay.
loads.
So-
He wanted to know.
He's gonna do it from my office.
For native, so when you're native, you're digital.
Reception.
So then I click on it,
Transition, right?
and it was deleted.
According to him.
I think that we
Oh, that would be nice of him.
Like, I really wanted to see what the comments were.
It's a good money number on that.
It's always
Um,
good.
I don't get on
These
these stories.
two
Yeah.
are very fast.
December
I don't have the app, but I still, I get the, and I put in on the bottom to unsubscribe, and I still get them.
I won't read them. I won't get on it. I
I,
won't.
yeah, I don't
My
know.
mental health is
Is
very
Sean,
important.
is Sean
Yes,
up there?
yeah.
Inviting
What I
himself.
was trying to
Shut
say,
it
when I
down.
got 600,000,
Yeah.
where would have done it
I don't know.
in the future?
Mhm.
Which
Is
is ridiculous, in terms of numbers, embarrassingly.
forgive up to 800 and whatever
I don't know,
thousand,
I remember
depending on what's required for insurance.
Bonnie's last day. All the staging.
Is that you just clarified that?
Yeah.
No, you did it right. It was just, I think, a more simple,
What?
I did too. I thought it
but
was.
I don't know
We
if
were
it's
there,
simpler to
but-
work for the investors.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if
It's
you want
fine.
the trust release.
Two more things that we're supposed to go to that I did in 20.
If y'all feel that we're good on that, then
Yeah.
I won't revisit it.
No,
Okay. All right, we're going to come back into session now. We still have one more item on this, 5D. It'd be 5D4, Resolution 2023-40, approve 2024 payment standards for Housing Choice Voucher Program.
I move approval of resolution 2023.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion or questions? Seeing none, Resolution 2023-40 has been moved by Commissioner Waters and seconded by Commissioner McCoy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Resolution 2023-40 passes 6-0 with Commissioner Peck absent. Moving on to 5E, Middle Income Housing Authority Proposal Discussion only.
So, Commissioners, as you know, the state created a middle income housing authority to fund projects that are primarily workforce attainable housing between 80 and 120% AMI. there was a bit of a urgent push to make potentially a decision on this project on the city side because of what I would characterize as an arbitrary 90-day requirement to make a decision and to make it before you really get to the point in the development process where you have all the information you need. And there was a significant amount of uncertainty associated with the state rules in this program. So as we've indicated in the past and as the state's indicated, I think to a certain extent there's an urgency to put money on the ground and get projects built, and to a certain extent they have indicated their building plan is required. So we get that. When we look at the program in terms of how it fits in with the housing authority, once we were able to buy some time to be able to get information back to the state in terms of whether or not this will work, and let me back up. Originally, we had to make a decision by October 3rd. We've sent a letter to the state requesting an extension until November 15th to look at and develop the specific details regarding this project and what it means for the housing authority and the city of Longmont. So two different hats playing in this one. What we've learned since then in conversations is that the state really looks they look more favorably at projects that are partnered with housing authorities. And so that was a fairly significant piece of information. When we looked at the deal potentially, it looked very similar to LHA deals that we've done in terms of what people were willing to do. And so obviously looking at, while it's not specifically called out, looking at a special limited partnership fee, but not technically under special limited partnership that could range theoretically, I would say probably $300,000 to $500,000 depending on how we negotiated. So there's that piece of it that you're used to seeing and sort of associated with the project. Another component that really kind of ties into the budget pieces is that you actually get a management fee that comes into it. And some clarity that we have on this is that the management fee does not assume that you will pay for the staff out of that fee. That's just additional revenue that would go to the housing authority. We think that could be in the neighborhood of $300,000 as well. And then on top of the management fee, you have the staffing cost. It looks like it's somewhere in the neighborhood of estimated $300,000, but we have to do actual costs. So we're looking at a property manager, a leasing position or assistant manager, and 2 maintenance plus whatever overheads associated on the financial side. Probably the most significant change condition that we're working on or that came out of this conversation, and I know there was some interest in how do you create certainty that the housing authority will always be in this position. Well, what we're discussing right now is actually taking an ownership interest into the property so that we can have that long-term. Now, it may be, it's like what we typically do in this, it's not a significant ownership interest, but it's enough of an ownership interest to give us some buy-in in terms of the transition. And so that's another piece that we're trying to figure out right now and have that conversation. On top of that, we need to have some conversations with the state. I know Tim's trying to talk to the state attorney and get some clarity because on a couple of issues. But you know, one of the things that we've learned is that the way it goes in is they contract with the housing authority to do the management function. If it were ever to sell, because part of the program is that it's exempt from property tax, and so for we're in the city side of the hat, that was kind of something that was different for us. If it were ever to sell and it was to go to a private developer, they don't maintain that property tax exemption. So immediately upon sale, the property tax starts coming into the city via that mechanism. If it stays in the middle income housing authority, I'm trying to find a way to negotiate that as long as it's in the program, the housing authority is the manager of the property, assuming that we don't, and assuming we don't fail to perform. If there's a fail to perform, we can always lose that management piece in this. So
Which
that's
means losing a revenue stream.
correct, but that's on us, right? We either perform or we don't perform. It's not an automatic that we're working on in this. And then we're also talking about a right of first refusal potentially in it that actually would give us the ability to purchase. And if we did that, I think, again, learning more about the Middle Income Housing Authority, I think what Molly and I talked about, we would see it almost working like a resyndication, where we would then go back to the Middle Income Housing Authority and say, we want to buy it, and have them help us finance it, similar to what we're doing right now at Village on Lake. So that's an update of where we are. We're still negotiating on that, but I do need some direction from the Housing Authority Commissioners that if you want me to continue negotiating under some of those principles, I just need that direction.
And I'll add on, if you don't mind. We have until November 15th. We still have the opportunity for the city side to submit a veto to the project, November 15th. So there is one more, we've got it slated if needed, November 14th for city council to consider that on that side. But this is our only opportunity to chat with the LHA board about the potential here. So the idea is that what we would try and sort out by that time, before that veto deadline, is either a letter of intent or a non-binding MOU, similar that we did on the Hoover project, just to make sure we're both heading in the right direction. And then anything formal would come after that, but that is the deliverable we're trying to get to ahead of that November 15th deadline.
I'm also talking to the DDA about the potential for them to invest. And I think there was some misunderstandings on certain components about commercial on the ground floor. What we learned is that when you look at what's on the ground floor, it's either leasing space or commercial. And then talking to Kimberly, I don't think she quite understood that nuance. So that was a piece of it. Also looking at the DDA to see if they can invest in some more ground floor commercial. We actually talked about that area between the cheese importers, almost creating kind of an alley concept that could potentially come up. So we're now bringing the DDA into that conversation as well. All of the commercial will be taxable. That's not tax exempt in the structure, it'll be condoed out. So that's another piece that we're trying to really resolve in this.
Just on the commercial piece, across the street in the Main Street station, there's a lot of vacant commercial space.
That's the problem.
And is that because of what the per square foot lease cost is that Ryan Bayer or Mass Equity, whoever's managing that, is charging? Or is it just the state of retail in live work or multi-use facilities like that?
I would say yes and yes. I think there is a significant part. Like I said, there is a part of it that is connected to the price per square foot. I think there's also a part of it in terms of the number of people that live downtown that is also equating to that. And so, you know, putting the city hat on when you look at the first and main transit station and you bring people there, that may actually change the commercial profile for all of these other places.
Yeah, I just think, you know, if we talk, it's easy to talk about commercial use of the first floor across the street.
Correct,
That ain't
right.
happening. And so then it begs for me, and we've had this conversation before, I'm not clear on, if I think about the risk and certainty matrix that pops up in my head, right? I don't understand what the risks are for the city on one axis, and the certainty then that would be required on another axis, right? To know where this project falls in terms of that matrix for either the city, the housing authority, or for the developers. That would be really helpful, right? What is the level of risk? And then what kind of certainty do we need, and for them, because, you know, they've got to succeed, right? Or we're the housing authority, the city's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, when's the next meeting on that?
We're meeting with them every 2 weeks until the deadline.
We'll know more of that. I just wanted to kind of go over some of the general concepts, but that's exactly what we're trying to do with the LOI, is to really identify what's the risk, what's the reward, and really set that point where we can come to you all and go, okay, we can grab this and here's what it looks like and here's where we put ourselves.
So this is a little bit off topic because it's about why the commercial space at Main Street Station is failing. My personal opinion is that that is where Main Street stops being a street and starts being a strode. And so the question is there anything that we could do to make, to extend the walkability and of Main down there, because it's just different. There's this barrier at 3rd Avenue that you really don't want to walk below there. And if we want to improve our investments as well as the city investments, we should be talking to CDOT about fixing that section of the road.
Part of that's with the First and Main Transit Station. I'll also say there's vacant commercial in different areas downtown. This
I
isn't
understand.
just I don't think this is just a First and Main issue. I think it's what's the retail market look like? What are the square foot costs? I think it's a little bit of everything that's coming in to impact that. But I do think when you look at 70 and 80% AMIs coming in, that's additional people that can bring more revenue in. And we also need to look at it from a sales tax perspective and model the potential sales tax returns that we'll get associated with it. So there's a lot of work to do. I just wanted to give you all an update and say, here's where we are. We have more time. Here are the types of things we're trying to negotiate, and we will bring something back to you once we have more specifics.
So you said November 14th potentially? This may be on the November 14th agenda.
Has to be if it's going to happen this.
If not sooner.
So, as somebody who has to wear different hats in the same field, if you will, I would say with the LHA hat on, I think everything that was outlined by the interim director meets LHA goals, if you will. Whether they meet council goals, don't know yet, because that needs more, refining, if you will. So in my opinion, from the LHA hat, based on what I've heard from an LHA perspective, I would be in support from this body of that kind of recommendation.
Well, I was, as a council member, thought it was a good idea even without the clarifications, because I think we should take risks sometimes in pursuit of these goals. So, I support it in this context.
Okay.
Would you like a formal motion on that?
If you're good with me continuing to negotiate.
Yeah.
I think consensus has been made. Okay. Seeing no other comments, we'll move on in the agenda to item 6, interim executive director report. Item 6A is the development updates.
We don't really have one right now because the project's on hold.
Okie dokie. Moving along to 6B, update on operations, or 6B1 occupancy report.
And I make this short and sweet tonight. So currently, we're sitting about 94% occupied. This is kind of partly in due, we have 8 units down for meth right now, all in different stages. Some are like cleaning, some are rebuilds. We've had a few unexpected deaths at Aspens and the Hover properties, so that contributed to a lot of unoccupied units that we were not expecting. And good news is the suites are pre-leasing pending vacants already. We've gotten to a point with MHP where we're in such good communication that as they are getting notices from tenants and we are being able to pre-lease those units and getting people in the queue to move in. So as soon as those units are ready, they're not sitting vacant for months, which is a huge change from where we were a few years ago with MHP. And I think this is Molly and I are continuing meeting with their executive directors and their team, and then I meet weekly with their on-site team. So we're moving mountains there.
Okay. Well, I guess my condolences to the family of the unexpected deaths that occurred. I assume that we all would feel that way. So I guess 6B2 is property updates.
Correct. Just a quick few updates. I didn't type up anything this month. We've already discussed the donation site at the suites. We're getting ready to really get that moving, looking for necessities, toiletries for the suites residents who are moving in with nothing, household goods, along with furniture that will benefit other LHA properties as well when we have people moving in under difficult circumstances. At Aspen Senior, we've been able to bring in elder share food distribution. Before they were just getting commodity boxes. Now twice a month, elder share is bringing up a truck with pallets of food, and we're doing on-site distributions. And that we just started that. We've had 3 distributions now, with Thursday being our 4th. And elder share has allowed us to take the extra items and take them to the suites. So if we have an abundance or cases of food, they've allowed us to take those to the suites and repurpose those and create a pantry for the suites residents. The suites doesn't get really any food distributions during the winter months. They get leftovers from farmers market and Whole Foods, but once farmers market ends, they don't get any fresh items. They don't get the ongoing commodities, beans, peanut butter, stuff like that. So with elder share allowing us to take these to the suites is really benefiting the suites residents. The first time we filled up the pantry, it was empty within probably 3 to 4 hours. And we took over 3 carloads. So big need there. We've started some resident engagement activities. We've had Longmont Senior Services Peer Support join us at Coffee and Conversations this month and last month. And we've seen an increase, just from what I'm hearing from Senior Services, of LHA residents attending activities at the senior center. We have Next Light coming in, sustainability, and senior center with other activities coming in over the next couple months. And we are moving forward with Rocket, Spring Creek, Fall River, Aspen Meadows neighborhood, and the suites.
Very good. No questions on that. So I guess we'll move on to public health and safety updates.
There's really, Sarah's not here tonight. I think the big thing, we talked about Sarah's role as part of the city budget and some other things that we're doing. Sarah is taking a larger role to actually start working, or she's working with Joni and Zach right now to start working and coordinating not only public safety and the housing authority, but coordinating public safety, housing authority, rangers, parking control, and any other enforcement group that we have within the city, so that we can really align more across everything that we do. So it's another version of a center of excellence. So instead of us operating in silos from each other and struggling, she's going to be coordinating, and every one of those really kind of in some ways touches the housing authority. So that's probably the big work that we're going to be doing right now over the next couple of months.
All right. And,
Yeah, well, I have a question, and I don't know whether it's a commissioner comment or whether it's under public health and safety. But I guess they're next to each other, so I could just ask it. My heart went out to the woman who spoke to us. And so the first question that I wanted to ask was, why would the rules change from manager to manager? Or is that a perception she has because she's just not, doesn't like change? And maybe, because she didn't really get to tell us all her grievances because she repeated herself a lot. So
what I would
know?
Well, so generally, one of the things we identified when we took over is there were times when managers were making their own rules. And so we kind of cut that out as we've gone. Beyond that, because it involves a tenant, we can't talk about it in this situation. And so I would be happy to set up some time with you to go over the details regarding this particular case and other issues.
Yeah, well, I was really more, I don't want to know about this particular person. I mean, I sort of do, but I realize that that's not an appropriate question. The question that I wanted to talk about is why would rules change from manager to manager? And what I'm hearing is that was a problem because people would just come in and do what they thought was right and didn't get trained on proper procedures, and that's being fixed or has been fixed.
Right, we're doing portfolio-wide rules.
And things are coming from inspections with the fire department that may be recognized at Aspen Senior, but we know we have the same situation at Fall River, Spring Creek, the Suite, so we are mirroring the policy across the portfolio.
So that's, that kind of stuff, improvements are gonna be perceived as
Yeah.
change.
Correct.
So there were like a lack of SOPs at one point, and now the SOPs have been in development.
And we're still developing them because we don't have everything we need. But, you know, like one thing is people like to open their doors. Well, because it's a multi-family unit and the way when you have interior entry points, those are fire doors.
Yeah.
So you can't open the doors.
Can't
And
prop
so
them open.
You can't prop them open
Yeah.
and leave them open. So we're like, you can't prop the doors open
It's like
because
being in a
that's a
dormitory.
fire code issue.
Sure,
Yeah.
sounds like it.
And people get frustrated. And so it could be something as simple as that. It could be as complicated as we need you to get parking permits, and to get your parking permit, this is a conversation I've had at multiple properties. To get a parking permit, you need to have your car registered. And people don't have their cars registered. So we've said, if you can't get your
The
car.
DMV?
The DMV. If you can't get your car registered, let us know so we can connect you to an agency that can help you so you can get your car registered. Nobody's really contacted us on that, so then they move them on the street. In areas where you have neighborhoods around it, you know, I think they assume that it's the housing authority that's calling the police. When in reality, it's probably the neighborhood and or the HOA, and then cars get towed because they're not registered. And we've all seen the comments that we're getting about unregistered vehicles. So that's another kind of issue that develops. And so it's property specific, but then it may be portfolio wide. And when we see life, health, safety issues, we deal with them in different ways. And all of that comes into play with some of the things that we hear.
You know, we've had the recurring conversation over the last few years, and I know we're doing more in this area, is the number of senior residents who could sit in that chair and describe things similar to what she described in terms of memory issues and fragility and sense of hopelessness or loneliness, or you know, all the things that kind of roll up into mental health concerns as we see this population age. And I'm in that cohort, right? I'm glad I don't have those experiences right now, but we're all aging, right? And I've used the term tsunami, that's going to hit this municipality and every municipality. And I know we're trying to get in front of that. Are there strategies that we're using or trying to anticipate using as this population grows of individuals who are having very similar experiences or effects of aging?
Well, I think that's rooted in the Center of Excellence that's focusing on mental health, where we're bringing them all together, because historically they operated in pods, but we didn't look at the whole and how we work with each other to really start grasping what are we dealing with, and really making sure that all of our departments are communicating with each other, because that's going to start giving us a sense of the scope of the problem. Because I don't think we have a really good appreciation for scope. Part of what we're talking about is we're talking about enabling caring communities. You know, we purchased Salesforce related to Nextlight, which now we have everybody in the system. How can we utilize Salesforce to maybe help enable that communication to be a little faster in getting through that? But that's really the goal of this Center of Excellence, is help us define the scope of the issue, because, you know, we talked about it earlier with the Rotary. It's an age issue, but, you know, what I would say is probably the most common issue is two things. It's mental health issues and substance abuse, and those aren't, when we look at our properties, those are across all properties, regardless of age. What you do when you get into age is then it becomes much more of an issue, because then it's not necessarily independent living that folks need to be in, and part of that is the work we've tried to do to figure out, is there a way to help develop affordable assisted living? We talked to the council, you all to the council, about how that is even more difficult than traditional property development. But that's not lost on us in terms of what do we need to tackle next, because I really think that's probably the more secure long-term solution, is creating more affordable assisted living, because a lot of the folks that we see in our age-restricted units are people that probably need to be in assisted living, but they can't afford anything, so they're having to live in independent living, which is why you see the clinicians and other things, and why, much to the chagrin on the city budget side, when senior Friends of the Senior Center and others were like, we don't have enough resource specialists, it's because we were really putting funding into the social work side of the senior center to try to start adding capacity from a human standpoint to deal with this issue, because I would argue when I look at the senior center, that's probably the most significant issue we're going to be facing over the next 5 years. And we're probably going to have to continue to make decisions on whether you fund programming or do you fund this, because this is about people's ability to live on a day-to-day basis, stay housed, have food, and do those things. And that's where you're seeing the alignment between the city and the housing authority start making a heck of a lot of sense, because both are informing each other.
On the other side, I just want to ask real quick, does MHP devote many resources to the aging-specific issues? No.
Long story short, we used to partner on the EDGE program with MHP. That's actually what we converted into lead and core on the city side because of capacity issues and making sure we had people respond. We didn't have that certainty before. And I think that's why you see us moving to adding clinicians in. So
I think MHP, it's hard for youth, it's hard for families.
Right.
Bilingual, they're.
Well, I know they're stressed to the deal.
Yeah, they are.
I just wondered if they devoted any time or resources specifically to the aging population specifically. And probably not, but it was just a question, because I don't know that much about MHP, to be honest with you.
And I want to add, just so, I don't know if you guys are aware that Longmont Housing Authority and the Senior Center, we meet every other month, and we really focus on the seniors aging in place and where this resource specialist see a need or my staff see a need, and we bring in adult protective services and different aging population groups to come educate us and help us identify more resources and how to direct residents. And we really work really closely with our resource specialists at the Longmont Senior Center as we start seeing a decline in a resident and bringing our housing retention team in to play. And we normally have Sarah Arnie's there, I'm there, Brandy Queen's there, and we sit down with the resident and the resident's family and start working on the next steps and bringing some of this information to light for the family if they're not seeing it yet.
And resident engagement and activities are critical to us, especially exiting the COVID loneliness. So we're tracking participation rates and then getting feedback on how you can see it in changes in behavior and in changes in mood, and really at the LHA side, it's more that micro level. You get, especially if someone doesn't have a lot of family or friends or connections, they come into the property manager's office and spend their time there making connections. And so our staff hears details of people's lives just to have somebody to talk to. So that feeds in, just like the microcosm feeds into the grander picture. So.
Well, the other thing is you find partners where you can find them. So like on the agreement with the Center for People with Disabilities. That building is probably worth $650,000. We worked with them to say, we'll sell it to you for $500,000, but you're going to sign this contract to provide resources at our facilities to help those individuals that are struggling with disabilities. And so anytime we can find a way to develop that partnership, we're trying to do it, because the city nor the housing authority is going to be able to tackle this on our own. Which is why I also agreed to talk to the Rotary, because I think the more we start exposing the community to this, the more people we're going to get that are going to be willing to come in and assist.
Most of the people in the room, the Rotary Club, were eligible for assistance and needed. I didn't say that. Am I on camera over there? I was some other Rotary Club, not the
There are two, right?
Yeah, there are actually three. It was one of those other.
Are there any other questions or commissioner comments at this time? Seeing none, I will adjourn this meeting of the October 17th Longmont Housing Authority meeting. Thank you, everybody.